Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Kage back again with some news pertaining to Heroes of the Storm. I apologize in advance for the unrelated match footage, but I didn't really have time to get related footage. Also, since I just released my Overwatch news, that got hit by a content ID, even though it was a promotional trailer. So I think this is the best option I have at this point. Oh well, that's my personal woes. On to the news. Not to be outdone by Overwatch, Blizzard's Heroes team announced at BlizzCon's opening ceremony the addition of 3 new characters, and yet one more character announced at the conclusion of the Overwatch announcements. This is giving us a grand total of 4 new characters that will hit the Nexus in the near future. Starting with the special Overwatch announcement, Tracer was revealed to be coming soon to the Nexus. Not much is known about her. She'll be the first Overwatch character that will be introduced into Heroes. Other than that, we pretty much assume she's an assassin, and we know that she's free to anyone that purchases the Overwatch Origins Edition. The first character talked about in the Heroes panel was Lunara, a Dryad from World of Warcraft, who enters the Nexus as a ranged assassin. Being a Dryad, Lunara has a naturally high movement speed, makes her very useful in short-range fights, but she has the inability to mount. This means she takes longer to get from long-range objectives, kind of like Sergeant Hammer. Lunara spreads a poison dot via her auto attacks and her abilities. Her first ability allows her to spread this in a small AoE, and her second ability allows her to slow anyone that's already infected by her poison, so she has great chasing and interference control. Her last ability is a wisp that she controls to gain vision of her surroundings, so she has one ability that is completely utility-based. As for her ultimates, they've given her the low cooldown ultimate treatment, kind of like Hammer's volcanic shot. Her ultimates, they're low cooldown, they have multiple charges as well. One is a long-range poke, while the other is the ability to jump over her enemy while doing damage to them. And since it has charges, she can do this multiple times in a fight, providing her with some interesting positioning abilities during a match. Next up is Gin Greymane, a Worgen from World of Warcraft, and Hero's first stance-changing warrior. He swaps between melee and ranged styles. Greymane's E ability, he swaps between 2 forms. It's not just a transformation, however, because while he's a human, the ability will charge you towards your enemy while you transform, putting you in a position to utilize your new melee skills. While you're a Worgen, you'll flip backwards, kind of like Vala, to give you space. It's a great escape, and it lets you set you up for your range damage with your newfound distance. As a human, you'll use the gun. As a Worgen, you use your claws. Now, much like his stance change, his Q ability, his first ability, changes based on your form. As a human, it's a fireball. It'll do more damage to the enemies behind your target than your primary target. And when you change to a Worgen, it's a charge, so you can help close your distance. Now, in an interesting decision, the ultimates that Greymane has access to depends on your form. As one is used in your human form, the other is used in Worgen, so it kind of helps emphasize the playstyle you prefer. The one ability that was the same between both forms, known as Inner Beast, was not discussed during the panel. It was just shown in slides. It can be assumed that maybe some kind of self-buff, but we really won't know until Blizzard releases his official hero page. It should also be noticed that Greymane was called an assassin during the panel, but he's called a warrior on his official webpage, so I'm not entirely sure which one will be. It's believed to be that he will be an assassin, as they were very adamant about that when they were discussing him, and his abilities tend to lend to him being more assassinish. Lastly, we got Cho'Gall. He's the most interesting announcement for Heroes of the Storm coming out of BlizzCon. So Cho'Gall's really an interesting experiment in pushing the limits of MOBA games, as he's a single character who's controlled by 2 players. Each player has access to their own abilities, talents, and ultimates. The player who plays as Cho, the first head, is the melee warrior half, and the other player is in charge of Gall, who's the ranged assassin. The person in charge of Cho is also in charge of the movement. Cho controls the entire melee combat of the character. He has a wind-up dash that he can close distance with. It pushes you forward and pushes enemies out of the way. And he can also set nearby enemies on fire. Gall, on the other hand, he's got ranged Shadow Blast and AoE Shadow Orb that contributes to the damage. Since he's attached to Cho, he doesn't have much else to do. His cooldowns have been made relatively low to give him plenty to help out in the fight. The third ability for each is where the teamwork really comes into play for Cho'Gall. Cho can throw a rune bomb at enemies, which Gall can control when the bomb is detonated. so teamwork can really make that ability shine. Another great cooperative moment can occur when the right ultimates are chosen, as one head can pull in a group of enemies while the other can detonate a huge AoE for massive damage. Cho'Gall is being given out to anyone who went to Blizzcon or bought a virtual ticket, and anyone that doesn't own him can gain him by playing with one of any other player that has him as the Cho head. I believe you can play as either Cho or Gall. Basically, one person has to own him, and then a second player can opt to play as the second head, even if they don't own him. And then after 2 victories, the player that doesn't own Cho'Gall will unlock him for free. Once Cho'Gall is available, I'll be more than happy to help unlock him for other players. So keep an eye out there, either on Twitch or here on YouTube. You might be able to come in and ask for a seat. Now, opening ceremonies at BlizzCon also introduced some new game types and maps. First was a game mode slated for next year, the Arena. A small, single-objective map designed around random heroes and big team fights. Closest mode you might compare this to is the all-random, all-mid, or ARAM, a game mode that's used in other MOBA-style games. A highlight of this, of course, was a preview showing that anything could happen, including all 10 players having the same exact character. They showed this in the clip as all 10 players being Illidan. Rather amusing. Now, they did talk about in the panel that they will be putting safeguards into place that will make this interesting. So examples were brought up such as 10 Abathurs or 10 Lost Vikings. They said that they noticed that when you have, say, 10 tanks, the matches can be slow. So they'll probably be putting some loose mechanic requirements in there so that the matches are at least interesting and not dull. Towers of Doom was announced at BlizzCon. It's been reported as a tug-of-war style map where you don't attack the enemy core directly. You have to do damage much like you do in Sky Temple, where you control points that will do the damage for you. Certain control points will increase the damage that your altars do to the enemy base. That's quite a bit to go over from day 1. Day 2 here, which is happening, just starting, I believe, as I record this. And it will have 2 more panels for Heroes of the Storm, where we'll be hearing more about the state of the game and some of the battlegrounds. One thing I'd like to leave you with before I sign off, though, is that in an interview after Day 1's panel, it was revealed that the Heroes team is redesigning the matchmaking system. And this is basically a total revamp with new prediction mathematics that should hopefully fix some of the really off matches that some players experience. I know my luck has been off lately, so I for one welcome our new matchmaking overlords. I'm hoping it will help anyway. So I thank you all for watching. I'll report back as I can with more Heroes of the Storm news.